Well, it is good to have you back for another day as we are continuing on through our Bible study journey through Advent. And we are using the Jesse tree for this journey. Now, if you'd like to find more about Advent and the Jesse tree and how you can be a part of this each and every day, you can visit that URL, go.christtable.today/Jesse tree. If you'd like to find out more about Christ Table, the ministry that helps make this happen each and every day, you can go right there, www.christtable.today. We would love it if you'd sign up for the email list there. And also if you would consider donating. We're only able to do this because of financial support from people like you. And if you'd like to get this entire resource box of Jesse Tree materials, you can also do that right there at go.christtable.today/Jesse Tree. Now, we're already involved in it, so, you might be getting it in your household a little later than the beginning, but that's okay. It's still going to be helpful, still be appropriate. You're going to get all of these Bible studies in this nice little book here that we are working through, a devotional book that's great whether you are a single, a couple, a family, a grandparent. We did it in our house last night and actually let the kids lead. And so that was super fun. So they pulled out the ornament for yesterday, the stump, and put that on the tree. And then today they will pull out, whenever they get home from school, the globe out of the bag, and we will go through the little devotional together with them. And one of the reasons why this Bible study is helpful is because it gives me some tools and some review for me to also use with my kids a little later on in the day. So today we are in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 31. And the whole point of this Jesse Tree study is to essentially paint a picture of God and his character and kind of review the entire story of the world up until the birth of Jesus. So 25 days, we're going to be focusing on Jesus' family tree and the character of God each and every day. And today we have the privilege of looking at the world. So the story of creation is fairly well known. I probably don't have to review much of it with you. And so whenever we jump into this story, it is rather poetic in the language that it uses. It's beautiful, it's instructive, but it also hints at who God is and who God hopes for us to be. When I look at the world around me, sometimes I think, is this what God intended? Maybe some things are what God intended. Maybe some things aren't. Kind of, I guess, maybe like when I look at my life. I look at my life, and if I were to do like a self-assessment, I would say, is this what God wants me to be? Am I who God wants me to be or not? And there might be some things that I point out in my life, and I would say, yeah, those things are fairly reflective of who I think God wants me to be. And other things I might look at and say, those areas might need just a little bit of work. All of those questions about ourselves and about the world around us go to this idea of design, of creation. What was the original intent for the design of the world? And how can we perhaps best reflect that design today, assuming that God designed it in a way where it would work well and that it would be enjoyable for us to live and that we could become more and more who God designed and wanted us to be. And so whenever I think about the world and I think about maybe what God intended, I think the Garden of Eden is actually a wonderful reflection of what God's hope for the world today is. A place that is filled with life, a place that is filled with peace, where all of the animals live in harmony. A garden implies a place, in the United States, a garden implies a place where you grow food. In England, when I was over there, a garden is a place of beauty. It's flowers and trees and something that's tended and taken care of. And I think both of those are in play here when we think about this idea of the Garden of Eden. It's a place that was supposed to bring joy and peace and was supposed to be a place where we love. We see that love in the creation of Adam. We see that love in the creation of Eve. We see that love in God's interaction with them, and a place to enjoy good food from the garden that produces food, and to enjoy beauty from parts of the garden where there is beauty. And so all of those things I think are important whenever we jump into Genesis chapter 1 to remember. So here we go. God said, and we're going to kind of jump to the final day of creation here because we're humans. We want to know about us, right? So God said, let us make human beings in our image to be like us. They will reign over the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, the livestock, all the wild animals on earth, all the small animals that scurry along the ground. What God is essentially saying here is all of the things that have just been created, humans are the pinnacle achievement of those things. And so whenever it's talking about reigning and ruling and listing all of these things, God is saying essentially, I am designing a being that is going to be above or better than all of these other things. And so I think that the first hint of who we are designed to be is we are designed to be God's masterpiece, his grand creation, his magnum opus. That is us, that is you, that is I. And it's fascinating that God says that we are made in his image. In fact, it doubles down on it in the next verse. So God created human beings in his own image. And then here we have it a third time, said backwards, just in case we didn't get it. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. So all human beings that were created, no matter your gender, no matter your hair, no matter your ethnicity, essentially the statement is here that all human beings are equal in this and that they are created in the image of God. Now, when I think of this word image, I think of a picture, I think of a photo that's on my phone, digital, in the old days, film, right? So my mind as a Gen Xer thinks of both of those. When this was written, though, image, they would not have thought of that. They didn't have cameras. They didn't have paintings. None of that was around. They might have thought of the word image as being a reflection in water. We were talking about this the other day with the kids. Before the advent of technology, people could not hear their own voice or see their own face. In a painting, they could, maybe in a scrawled design on the inside of a cave, they could, but there was no way other than looking into water, still water, that you could see you. Fascinates me then that this is used here. And one of the pictures that I think is really compelling is the sun and the moon. At nighttime, the moon gives off light, but it's only reflected light. The moon has no light of its own. That light comes from the sun. And so I think of us oftentimes as being moons that are reflecting the light of the sun, that are reflecting the image of the sun to the world, to the globe. And so I think whenever we say, in a way, that we are made in the image of God, we're saying that we are, as a follower of God, or all humanity, are a reflection of the sun, or a reflection of God into the world. So this idea, I think, is important for us to remember at the very start of Advent, that you are made in the image of God. I know that many of us, in fact, we're talking about it on the podcast, Jack Theology. Today, we're talking about mental health. And um, many of us are the type of people who struggle with security. We struggle with being able to feel lovable. We struggle with feeling whole. We struggle with being healthy. We have a dim or difficult view of ourselves in the world. That may be because of chemical imbalance, that may be because of internal wiring, that may be because of a mental health issue that's inherent to how we were designed. It could be that situations that we've gone through have made us that way. It could be our family of origin, our mom, our dad, some other family member messed us up. A lot of us have a real difficult time seeing ourselves as equal with other human beings and see ourselves as being a masterpiece. And I think that at the very get-go of Advent, the very get-go of the Bible, it's important for us to recognize that you were intentionally designed. You were stamped with the image of God. What does that mean? Well, I don't think it just means reflection, and a lot of scholars and people smarter than I have argued about what this means. I think it means lots of things and everything. When I hear the image of God, it means that there are bits and pieces of who God is and how God is and what God is that are wrapped into who I am at the molecular level, DNA, and also the parts of me that are much more intangible, the soul, the emotions, the will. For me, I like to think of the image of God as being stamped best into me and into you by being creators. Perhaps one of the most inherent and important parts of who God is a creator. He's often called a creator God. Human beings also have been stamped with that ability to create. You are a creative person, whether it's in the classical sense of the word or in the godly sense of the word. You create. You create things in your life every day, in your world every day. You are a creative. You're made in the image of God, and you have value and worth. So, what do we do with all of that? Well, if I ask myself, what does that look like? If I am made in God's image, what does God look like? And this is the hope of Advent. Jesus. Jesus, being God, being the promised one, is our best clue as to who, what, and how God is. If we want to know God, the best place to find out what God is like is Jesus, which thus means if we are made in the image of God in order to reflect in some way God, the best way for us to see who we should be, how we should be, what we should become, is to, as much as is possible, mirror Jesus. He is the model for what the image of God best looks like, unmarred, undirtied. You know, you're in the bathroom and you've got the steam going in the shower and the windows fog up. Reflection doesn't work well when the windows are fogged. You're driving in the car. It's raining. What do? There's rain all over the windshield. You can't see out. We do. You have to physically, actively do something to be able to see the reflection in the mirror in the bathroom. You've got to wipe the steam off. You've got to turn on the windshield wipers on the car. This is this is important for us as well. What do you need to do in order to reflect God's image better, for that reflection to be seen? You got to clean off the things that aren't Jesus. You got to clean off the things out of your life. I have to clean out the things in my life that don't look like Jesus, so that I will better reflect the image of God. This is the journey of Advent. Then God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, govern it, reign over the fish of the sea, the birds in the sky, all of the animals that scurry over the ground." So again, here is that mandate again to recognize how and who and what you were created to be. Own your role as being the only thing on the planet. The only thing on the planet that's made in the image of God is you and those sitting next to you. The dog's important. Cat's important. They're not made in the image of God. You are. Then God said, "Look, I've given you everything you need. I've given you every seed-bearing plant in the earth. I've given you all the fruit trees for your food. I've given every green plant as food for the wild animals, the birds in the sky, the animals that scurry along the ground, everything that has life." That's what happened. Everything's taken care of. You are taken care of. Then God looked over all that he had made, and he saw that it was, I love this, very good. It's the first time that very good is used. Now, at the end of each and every day of creation, day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, God looked at the end of the day, and it says he saw it was good. This is the very first time that, though, God uses this very good. Not just good, but very good. Teacher tells you, "Hey, that was good work." "Okay, thanks." Teacher says, "That's very good work." It means something. It means something here as well, that this is the first time out of all of the times he said it, and he said it about everything else he created. But this time he looks at everything and he says, "It's very good." What's the difference here? You were in it. Male and female. It doesn't say Adam and Eve. It says male and female. Essentially, God's stepping back and saying, it's not that I looked at Adam and Eve and I said, "They're very good." Saying God looked at the world that he had created, and he looked at that world now with humans in it, with you in it. And he breathes and he says, "It's finished." This is not just good. This is very good. The world was not very good until you were in it. Well, until tomorrow, happy reading.